125, Intro to Literature. I will be your host and guide, mentor, dare I say friend, over the next 5 weeks as we explore the wide, wonderful world of literature, and even more so than that, if that sounds really boring, we're going to look at why people tell stories, the kinds of stories that we tell each other, and what happens when we do. So I think that even if you hate reading in general, you may get something out of this course after all. A little bit about me. I live in eastern Iowa with my wife and 2 sons and a daughter on the way, due to arrive in October, and our dog Alex. And let's see, as I mentioned in my intro, please feel free to read about it more in the Meet Your Teacher section, Meet Your Instructor. But as I mentioned there, I'm myself an Ashford graduate. I graduated long ago from their Clinton, Iowa campus, and I double majored in English and liberal arts. I earned my master's degree in English, and during that time I focused on biographical criticism and cultural studies. So I looked at the ways that authors' lives influence their texts that they produce, and I looked at sort of cultural interactions with different kinds of texts, including movies and TV shows. As a matter of fact, I recently published a chapter in a book that looks at zombie origin stories, and my chapter was about how zombie origin stories sort of change throughout the decades to mirror what's going on in culture at large. Anyway, a little bit about me. So obviously, I like zombies and getting nerdy about stuff and telling stories. So that's what this class is all about. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting things underway. So, keeping things moving along, things that you'll want to know for this course. Okay, so in week 1, we're in week 1 now. Make sure if you haven't done so that you pop by and post your introduction. And I've been enjoying reading everybody's introductions, and I'll make sure that I reply in due time here. So make sure you post your introduction. And then the 2 discussions for this week both involve reading chapters 1 through 3 of our Clugston text, and then responding to the prompts of each discussion, sort of drawing on what you've learned from chapters 1 through 3. And both discussions, in their own way, are sort of getting you to start thinking about literature or stories and why we tell them, what we do with them, if there's any use for them in your opinion or not. So make sure that you do those. And an important thing to keep in mind, a couple of things. Make sure that you meet that 200-word minimum. Make sure whenever you're making references to the Clugston text, our course text, that you include in-text citations and reference entries. So both of your entries this week should have an in-text citation and a reference entry. And make sure, too, that you respond to your peers and engage with them. That's a really important part of this process. And the rubrics that the university uses, that then I then use to grade your discussion posts, dock on a significant amount of points if you don't engage with your peers. So just a word of warning in advance. You may think that you've written a really great initial post, and so that'll carry like the weight of your grade, and you might not need to interact with any peers. But I assure you that if you don't interact with any peers, I think the rubric takes you from, say you were at maybe like 100, it'll take you down to like almost an 80 or a C+, a little lower than that. Point being, interact with each other. Get to engage with your peers and see what they have to say. And I think it'll be worth your while. All right, so the assignment for this week is to get you thinking about the final essay that you'll write. And it's a little early, I know it may feel like, but we only have 5 short weeks to cover everything about literature, or a lot of things about literature at any rate. So, with that in mind, we want to get you thinking about what you're going to be doing for that final paper at this point. But don't panic. If you need to change and adapt as we move along, you can. So you're not locked into everything, to whatever your choice is right now. But they do want you to get the ball rolling. So they ask you for this assignment to choose from one of several prompts that they have that'll sort of guide your response, and then to also pick a text that you might want to focus on. So while I'll be looking for those things when I grade your assignments from this week, I am okay with you coordinating with me as we go forward, because you might read something else in a couple of weeks that really just strikes you much more potently than what you had initially chosen, and you want to write about that. And so we can definitely coordinate and work that out. So that's the assignment for this week. Um, there's a self-check. Check out my instructor guidance each week, and all 5 weeks of my instructor guidance are already there and available for you to see. So if you want to get ahead, you can read what I've written each week in my instructor guidance sections a little bit. And basically, I just sort of follow what they're discussing each week and try to elaborate on it a little bit, try to provide some useful links, a few video dramatizations of different texts that we read, because I like those, and I like to see how different people bring a text to life, across media, from text to the screen, for example. So check some of those out. And I guess lastly, but not least by any means, please know that I'm here to help you. I love my job, and I want to do it well. And for me, that means keeping open lines of communication with all of my students. So just please feel free to shoot me an email, phone call, text. I've FaceTimed with a couple of students before to go over drafts and things like that. Pony Express, carrier pigeon. However works best for you to get in touch with me, please feel free to utilize that means, and I will respond in kind. I always try to reply to any calls or emails or whatever within 24 hours. I post in my hours that I've got listed after hours and weekends as available. So my standard office hour times are 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, Central Standard Time. But I realize that we're all over the place. Each of us geographically speaking, so sometimes that time slot's just not going to work for some of you. So I try to keep myself available before and after as I'm able to. So I encourage you, call me when you can. And I really do encourage phone calls, because they are a faster way, I think, to handle things than an email thread that can kind of go back and forth over a couple of days. If you just shoot me a call, we can wrap up whatever your problem is probably in 10 minutes, or issue, or whatever you'd like to discuss. So I encourage phone calls. If you don't get me, leave a message, and I will get back to you as soon as I see it or I'm able to. And with that, let's see, I'm running at like 7.5 minutes here. I don't want to go too long and bore to death. I'm excited about this course and looking forward to working with each of you. Remember, stay in touch. No problem too small. And enjoy this first week's readings, because there's some good stuff in there. Alright, see you guys.